cheap, baby. All right, so the live chat is already cooking. I'm just going to go straight to it with about 9,200 people on it. Wow, you guys bless us by watching and participating.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. D-Dye says the campaigner-in-chief. So during the live TV version of us, we had the president's bilateral meeting and news conference, not meeting, but news conference with the Prime Minister of Italy, Matteo Renzi. Who we all decided looked a little bit like John Edwards. But anywho.
A fatter John Edwards because he eats more pasta.
That's not nice.
Well, John Edwards is not too fat.
We didn't get to go into complete detail on what the president said about the economy. Shall we?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I mean, the final point I made was that the economy is not growing bigger, but the government is. There was no attempt to deal with a problem that's not only happening in the United States, but here he had a foreign leader, a European leader, and all of Europe he's right, the United States is doing better than Europe is, but that's because Europe, to a large extent, is not growing at all. If we're at 1.7 or whatever it is, they're at 0. Some of them are negative growth. Some of them are losing money. So the whole world has to come up with a new way of growing. Yeah. Otherwise, we're going to have a worldwide depression like we haven't had since the 1930s.
So Kelly Moore on Facebook says, Obama said the economy is growing. What you people don't understand is that Obama's economy is growing, just not for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Well,
just like
and that's absolutely right. You know, he's incredibly out of touch. And I've always felt that his economic team is the same way because they talk about how they add all these wonderful jobs. But in reality, they're part-time jobs, you know, and that's not helping people out. We had a conversation on my show last night about, you know, people who have multiple jobs because they like the autonomy and the flexibility of working for Uber and TaskRabbit and setting their own hours. But there are other people who are stuck in the Obama part-time jobs who want full-time jobs, but because of the economic environment, they don't have the mobility to move over. And, you know, a lot of employers don't have the ability to train the people they need to fill those jobs they have.
Or to pay them in a more salary-based existence and to build in, you know, that old structure that we used to have of people moving up in small businesses. I mean, they still employ 66% of everybody, all of us.
Listen, I'm not an economic expert like all you FBN people, but he didn't even talk about the impacts of Obamacare and what that's happening on small businesses.
What would he say exactly after last week's news on it?
Like, or after Bill Clinton started talking about how lousy it is.
Wrong. Aetna is wrong. The prices have not gone up. Like, what would he say?
But my friends that own small businesses, that by far, one of my girlfriends runs a hair salon. She had to let go a bunch of her hairstylists because she can't afford to pay Obamacare for everyone who works for us. And her business has suffered. This is someone I've known for years in my life. There are real life repercussions for the American public from this that he continues to deny. So when you talk about, again, I'm not an expert like you guys are. You want to talk about why the economy's in the crapper? Maybe start with your biggest failed policy.
You mentioned a point, which is that small businesses are some of the best vehicles for advancement, whether advancement in money and salary, in your career, or in innovations. That's where the great innovations were made. The computers were made in basements, Steve Jobs' basements, et cetera. That sort of green sprout stuff is not going on now.
Even further to the Industrial Revolution, that's what powered the Industrial Revolution.
Exactly.
It was not central planning. It was individuals who were, you know, they had their own personal economy and their own personal factories.
Well, it was ownership.
Where they were tinkering.
It was the ownership of ideas and the idea that the individual can not just be a cog in the wheel, but actually can make it turn. And I mean, just that whole purposefulness of the individual was hugely important. We're losing it in our economy, especially if you have to have 3 or 4 jobs.
Oh,
because who are you individually
having 3 or 4
yoked
jobs
to? Nobody.
But I used to cover Latin America, and in Latin America, we were always proud, us Americans, when we went down there, we'd say, down there it takes 4 months to start a new business because of all the regulations, all the taxes, all the bribes that you have to pass out. Where in Miami, we do a comparison. Miami would take like 4 hours. Now, it's almost reverse. It's so difficult to start a new business with all the new regulations, with all the new taxes. And unfortunately, I suspect there are more bribes going down in the United States than they're used to as well, which means we're becoming more corrupt. So we are turning into a banana republic. I mean, it's as simple as that.
If that is true, does that speak to why it seems like the American public has been pretty anesthetized to what's going on with the corruption that we've seen through these email leaks and from what the FBI has shown us as of late.
Because they've acclimated towards that kind of way of doing business.
Yeah, but you know what?
Hillary Clinton aside, the State Department and the FBI getting together, doesn't that bother anybody?
Yeah.
Like, even if it hadn't been her and we knew what had happened with her secret super server that was in a basement.
That's why you have Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump in the same year, because there are a lot of people who are really sick of those institutions that are only looking out for themselves. And they no longer protect the rights of the individuals or respect individual rights. And, that's why you have people flocking to these people who say that, they use words like revolution. Bernie Sanders constantly talked about a revolution, and people respond to that because they want a big change. Because what is static and status quo in Washington, D.C. has done so much more harm than good for most people that is the reaction you're seeing.
By the way, it's not only Washington, it is global. It's funny because during the press conference, he kept saying, oh, my friend Angela, my friend. You mentioned before, they're so isolated. These leaders, the elite, the establishment, they call themselves by first names. We control the world. We're fine. You folks, you just kind of have to settle down and stop shouting and stop being so complaining about things because we'll take care of things. Well, they're not taking care of things. Things are getting much, much worse as a result of this small elite that's in their own little private club where they call each other by their first names, and they're controlling everything. People don't want that anymore.
And if he's such good friends with Angela, excuse me, I say Angela, but if he's such good friends with her, is he going to talk about the fact that pepper spray is now sold out in Europe because of all the sexual assaults that are happening to women in Germany? Is he going to talk about some of the dark things that are happening in Germany right now? I mean, it's just so, like you said, it's a level of elitism and just isolationism that I think exactly shows the American public why Donald Trump is so popular on so many different levels.
You talk about things that the president doesn't want to talk about with Cologne, Germany, which is specifically where women, remember that on New Year's Eve last year and all those sexual assaults that they had? And
still going on.
They were putting out in the Muslim community among the men those drawings. Remember, we had them on our show telling you how not to touch a woman, and I thought, or just don't. I mean, it was just... But I don't say it to make a joke about. I mean, this was a reality that they were doing in Germany to try to fight something that they couldn't deal with because of the way that they've
and they had no choice
immigration.
About it. They had no choice about it. That's the bottom line. Again,
you're right. It is an illegal immigration over there that they're fighting about. This is how they're doing it. Period.
But again, it's something that's forced upon the people. You have to, whether you like it or not, you have to accept it because the elite know. Because my friend Angela knows, or my friend Berlusconi knows, or whoever it happens to be. It's just too.
I just want to know if he's
inside.
talking about the hard things too, because her approval ratings have tanked. She's not nearly as popular as she once was, and if you want to talk about Syrian refugees, there's a flip side to this as well, which is why again people are responding to Donald Trump's rhetoric the way they are, and it's actually hard for me to watch his press conferences anymore because it's not just spin; it's spin in a way that's so bad and so egregious that I feel like he's straight out lying, and the Putin stuff makes my head want to explode.
So Megan, are you going to be able to sit down and watch the debate tomorrow night?
I have to tell you, I have drank so much on these debates. I'm like one glass deep, and then automatically it's 3.5 glasses because I'm like, still not talking about to reform the VA. Take another drink. Still not talking about. No, it's just no. We're not.
This is Chris Wallace, so this will be.
It'll be
I have
so
a lot
much
of
more
hope with Chris
substantial.
Wallace.
The debate is segmented. They're going to talk about debt. They're going to talk about immigration. They're going to talk about the Supreme Court. I mean, there are a lot of big issues that there's still so many outstanding questions for both of these candidates, and I don't think it could be a better time or a better debate to have someone like Chris Wallace.
What would be your first question?
I'd ask about debt service, absolutely, because I think they both have flimsy plans to truly tackle that. It's such a hard thing to respond to, and even Tim Kaine tried to pivot and say, let's talk about the tax cuts for the middle class. It's like that doesn't address debt service, and that doesn't address what we're leaving generations with. This $19 trillion. What is your plan to shrink that? And if not, how are you going to pay off the credit card?
I would ask about the Iran deal and the Iranian proxies that are shooting at our Navy ships right now. And I would say, do you want to sponsor terrorism? Do you want to sponsor people shooting at our own warships right now? No one is talking about this. That'd be the first question I asked. Sorry, I jumped in on your question.
No.
For sure, mine would be focused on the economy, which Chris plans to open with as it stands right now. I'm just curious how each candidate plans to create a more business-friendly environment. They both want to say what's popular for their parties, but truly, what is it going to take to grow this economy? Things are a lot different than they were 4 years ago, 8 years
think
ago.
You've heard
a lot has changed.
Enough from the candidates on that up till now?
No. No way. Unfortunately not. That is the question. How do you grow the economy?
Yeah.
Simple.
All right, well, I know
They
the
say it's
answer
simple.
for some of the questions. Watch the debate tomorrow night at 9 Eastern with Chris Wallace. I mean, what else would you be doing? We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.